200 days and nights. That's the duration of the Battle of Stalingrad. It was the bloodiest battle in human history. According to rough estimates, the total losses of both sides in this battle exceeded 2 million people. The average life expectancy of a soldier at Stalingrad, either German or Russian, was about 15 minutes. It means that the fighting was so fierce that anyone who was left in the city barely had a chance of surviving until the next day. Now you will hear the most heartbreaking excerpts from the letters and diaries of German soldiers who clearly describe the hell that they were in. Memories of Private Hermann Heiss. A Russian soldier poked me in the chest with a bayonet. Then 7 more times in the back. I was lying motionless like a corpse. The Russians thought that they had finished me off. I heard my comrades moaning and immediately lost consciousness. Lieutenant Richter writes in his diary, November 1942. We had hoped that we would return to Germany by Christmas, that Stalingrad was in our hands. What a delusion. This city turned us into a crowd of emotionless corpses. Stalingrad is hell. The Russians are not like people. They are made of iron. They know no fatigue, no fear. Sailors go on the attack wearing only vests when it is freezing cold. Physically and mentally, one Russian soldier is stronger than our whole squad. And here is the last letter of the unidentified soldier, January 4th, 1943. The Russian snipers and armorers are undoubtedly disciples of God. They are watching over us day and night, and they never fail. For 58 days we have attacked one single building, and we did it in vain. Equipped with the most advanced weapons, the Russians are attacking us severely. It is demonstrated in the battles for Stalingrad most of all. Here, we have to conquer every meter of land in fierce battles and suffer heavy losses as the Russians fight hard and fiercely, until their last breath. None of us will return to Germany unless a miracle happens. And I don't believe in miracles anymore. Time is on the side of the Russians now. Excerpt from Heinrich Malkus's letter. When we came to Stalingrad, there were 140 of us. By the 1st of September, after 2 weeks of fighting, there were only 16 of us left. Everyone else was wounded and killed. We had no officers, and a non-commissioned officer had to take command of the unit. Every day, about 1,000 wounded are taken out of Stalingrad to the rear. As you can see, we are suffering heavy losses. Here is what machine gunner Adolf writes to his mother. We can't leave the hiding places during the day or they will shoot us like animals. The Russians have keen eyes. There were 180 of us and only 7 of us left. There were 14 number 1 machine gunners before. Now, there are only 2. Excerpt from Obergefreiter Joseph Ziemach letter. It's a living hell here. There are barely 30 people in each squad. We have never experienced anything like this before. Unfortunately, I can't tell you everything. If my fate lets me, I'll tell you about it someday. Stalingrad is a tomb for German soldiers. The number of soldiers' cemeteries is growing. Yesterday we got vodka. We cut the dog at this time, and the vodka arrived just in time. Although I've already slaughtered 4 dogs in total. But my comrades eat and can't get enough. One day I shot a magpie and boiled it. On December 26th, we boiled a cat in honor of the holiday. Excerpt from a letter of soldier Otto Schechtig from the diary of the 8th Light Machine Gunnery Park Officer, 212th Regiment, 19 November. If we lose this war, they'll avenge us for everything we've done. Thousands of Russians and Jews were shot together with their wives and children near Kiev and Kharkiv. It's unbelievable, but that's exactly why we have to do everything possible to win this war. November 24. We got to Gumrak this morning. There is terrible panic there. There is a steady stream of cars and carts moving from Stalingrad. Houses, food, and clothing get burned. They say we are surrounded. Bombs are exploding everywhere around us. Then it was reported that the town of Kalach, previously seized by the Germans, was in the hands of the Russians again. 18 divisions seemed to have been deployed against us. Many people got discouraged. Some are already saying that they will shoot themselves. We saw units burning their clothes and documents on our way back from Karpovka. Excerpt from the diary of the liaison officer Oberlieutenant Gerhard Rumpfing, January 15th. Passing through Gumrak, I saw a crowd of our retreating soldiers, weaving in all kinds of uniforms, wrapping all kinds of clothing on themselves, just to keep warm. Suddenly, one of the soldiers fell into the snow, and the others passed by indifferently. No comment needed. January 18th. In Gumrak, there are German soldiers along the road and in the fields, and dugouts and near dugouts. They died of starvation and then froze. Excerpt from the testimony of the prisoner of war Captain Kurt Mendelheim. In the last 2 days, we got 60 members of our battalion killed, wounded, and frostbitten. Over 30 people escaped, and there was ammunition enough only until evening. The soldiers had not eaten anything at all for 3 days, and many of them had frostbite on their legs. We were faced with the question, what should we do? On January 10th, in the morning, we read a leaflet that contained an ultimatum. This could not but affect our decision. We decided to surrender to save the lives of our soldiers. Excerpt from testimony of another prisoner of war, Corporal Joseph Schwarz. I read the ultimatum, and a burning anger at our generals came over me. They had apparently decided to finish us off in this goddamn place. Let the generals and officers fight here for themselves. I've had enough of war. Letter of a mother to her son, Oberlieutenant Gaines Genreit. My dear boy, you took part in the Battle of Smolensk. I watched the Chronicles in Walkinshaw for the 3rd time. What a great spectacle. Tanks were moving on the screen, weapons rattling, tanned, smiling young men in their shirts with their sleeves rolled up to the elbow, and I had hoped to see your dear face among them. And then there were fields strewn with the corpses of Russians and columns of prisoners of war. These horrible alive Russians look like beasts. We can study horrors by these faces. And this is the kind of rabble you have to fight? The terrain is horrible, so scary. I have no idea how you and your comrades are moving forward there. It's impossible to think about it. Only when I saw it on the screen did I realize what you poor boys are going through. But I hope that your greatest hardships are behind you now that Moscow will fall soon, and the war will be over. I pray for your return every day. Sending you greetings and kisses with caring love. Your mom. Letter from non-commissioned officer Klaus Schwarz. Dear Gertrude, sending you another short letter. I'm at the observation post in the church. I can't say it's cozy here, but I don't want to worry you. We haven't made a single step forward in 4 days. The Smolensk-Moscow highway is close by, and the Russians are firing weapons of all calibers, especially the launcher, which our positions call Johnny. There is only one weapon left in our battery. Everything else was destroyed during the attack by the Russian tanks. They really poisoned our lives. We were told that the Russians were no longer the same soldiers. Don't believe that. Guys fight to the last drop of blood. The Russians don't stop shooting even when they're half dead. I must admit that the Russians have a pretty good system for educating commissars. There are enormous losses in the infantry. One battalion counted 105 losses a day, and we had 26. The squads have shrunk to the size of small groups. There are moments when I don't know what to do. It's not easy to keep myself and others up. Some are already losing their courage. And after every battle, I hear over and over again, when will the hostilities end? Damn that Moscow! I still hope that we will be rotated with those who have been in France and have never been in battles. while we here are bleeding here. That's enough for today. Now it's going to be another incomparable battle. If I survive, I will write the next letter. But it all depends on the Russians. My warmest regards and kisses. Your faithful and loyal friend, Klaus. Excerpt from a letter from Corporal Albrecht Otten to his wife, January 15th, 1943. Over the last few days, the front has collapsed. Everything is left to the mercy of fate. No one knows where his regiment or squad is. Everyone is on his own. The supplies are still bad, so the moment of defeat is inevitable. During the last few days, the following happens. We are attacked by 6 or 9 SB-2s or IL-2s with 2 or 3 fighters. Before they have time to leave, the next ones show up. And drop their bombs on us. Each machine has 2 or 3 heavy bombs on it, and the bomb blast can be heard all the time. It should be quieter at night, but the humming doesn't seem to stop. These pilots sometimes fly at 50 or 60 meters altitude, and we don't hear our anti-aircraft weapons. We are completely out of ammunition. The planes are firing from air coils and sweeping our dugouts off from the earth. Excerpts from letters of German soldiers and officers intercepted by the German censors. Report number 19 of July 1941 of the Field Mail Censorship Office of the 4th Army. We're suffering severe losses. There are only 2 of the 9 people left in my squad. This is not the case only with me, but with all the squads if they still exist. Together with the platoon commanders, we had 4 non-commissioned officers left in our squad. We had 22. This war is a misery for all of us. The good spirits are gone. The fighting is getting harder and harder. There are fierce battles for every meter of ground, and in every battle, we lose more and more people. Handsome brunette Max was killed on July 11th. It makes a shitty impression on his comrades. The road of victory has become the road of the graves. Private Corpsman Erich Nachler wanted to write home. Now we are in Lenel. You can find it on the map. It was terrible. Everything is burned and not even a small part of the city survived. But I didn't see the Russians setting houses on fire themselves. The distraught inhabitants ran amongst the fires and ruins, trying to save their miserable belongings. Many Russians and horses were killed. The young men of the Einsatz team made a depressing impression. Instead of fighting on the battlefield, they showed their courage in front of unarmed people in the occupied territory, finishing off the still alive with bayonets and buttstocks. The military doctor Rohal took the bandages off the wounded and shot 4 Russians right before my eyes. Letter from Soldier Gaines Mueller. My dear beloved Gerda, I am writing you the last letter. You will not receive anything else from me. I curse the day I was born a German. I am shocked by the pictures of the life our army in Russia. Debauchery, robbery, violence, murder, and murder. Elderly people, women, and children are killed. They kill for no reason. This is why Russians defend themselves so madly and bravely. Russian soldiers stand where they are told to stand until they are killed. You have to be Russian to endure it all. Non-commissioned officer Walter Osman writes, This is a very exhausting war. As an adversary, the Russians are definitely underestimated. They fight bravely and stubbornly, defending their homeland to the last drop of blood. They do not care whether they die or not, and this causes respect. With each passing day, the hope for a quick victory before the cold weather fades away. I am not in the mood to write because I don't know what will happen to me tomorrow. Many of my friends have been killed and wounded. My nerves are on the edge from continuous fighting, and vodka is the only cure. You have no idea how much I've cursed this war. It all makes no sense. I look forward to Führer's promise of an imminent end to this war. I've had enough. In the first months of the war against the USSR, the German troops were very happy about their achievements at the front, and this is what they wrote home. An excerpt from Corporal Kurt Kammen's letter to his parents. Dear Mom and Dad, the locals met our heroic offensive in a panic, and our victorious march goes on. The Russians are retreating, and they suffer tremendous losses, and we could say that we already broke them. The war will be over very soon. The local population escaped as we approached. They immediately realized the hopelessness of their situation. And then they go back like stray dogs with our leaflets and their miserable belongings to their rotten huts, which burn perfectly well. They immediately realized that their only protection was us, the Germans. Lines from a letter from a lieutenant in the 74th Infantry Division. I can already say for sure that in a month and a half, maybe 2 months, the flag with the swastika will hang over the Kremlin in Moscow. Moreover, this year we will finish Russia off and knock it down. Yes, it is no secret that in a month, the invincible Wehrmacht will stand at the gates of Moscow. It's only about 1,000 kilometers from Moscow to Suwałki. All we need is another blitzkrieg. Only we can attack like that. Forward, forward, and only forward. We will follow our tanks, bombing the Russians with bullets, shrapnel, and shells. No demands more from us. A short excerpt from the diary of Lieutenant Heinz Nocht, a Me-109 fighter pilot. The effect of surprise was dramatic. One of the barracks buildings went up in flames. Explosions ripped tarps off trucks, overturning them. It was like an anthill underneath. The Russians were scurrying everywhere. Sons of Stalin in their underpants ran for cover under the trees. There they were, Russian soldiers. Obergefreiter Otto Schulk wrote to his mother on June 27, 1941. My dear Mom, our ingenious Führer calculated everything right and attacked these barbarians just in time. We, the soldiers at the front, saw with our own eyes that the Russians had prepared everything for the destruction of Germany. For 25 years, they only armed themselves and did not allow their people anything. They did not build roads and comfortable apartments just to launch a surprise attack on Germany. But thanks to the genius of our Führer, it all worked out the other way around. The tank commander of the 25th Tank Regiment, Karl Fuchs, made the following note in his diary on June 28, 1941. Yesterday, just like the day before yesterday, I succeeded to hit 2 enemy tanks. So the first battle award is around the corner. Actually, the war is not so scary. One thing is clear. The Russians are escaping like rabbits, and we are all pushing them along. We all believe in a quick and final German victory. Here are the letters of a German soldier sent home by the end of 1941. Excerpt from a letter of Wachtmeister Opperman to his wife. I will tell you in a few words how I was doing and what I was going through. From May to the end of October, we were attacking all the time. We went through a lot and did a lot, constantly under the threat of death. Before the Don, the war was still bearable. But at the pre-bridge fortification on the Don, the Russians began to attack us in such a way that we often fell into utter despair. Whole squads and battalions were killed here. It was like a meat grinder, and despite these losses, we could not move forward even a meter. Excerpt from Corporal Honorzer's letter. I hope you are all alive and well, which I can't say about me. The 8 weeks we have lived have not passed without a trace. Many of those who used to be in good health are gone, buried in the cold Russian ground. I still cannot understand how the Russians could gather so many troops and equipment to put us in the position that we are in now. These are the hardest weeks of my entire 30-year life. On top of that, I am with my squad 50-60 meters away from the Russians. It's a blessing that they don't attack here yet. As soldiers, we're worthless now. Obergefreiter Henry Gainman writes to his wife, Today, it would be the greatest joy for me to get a piece of stale bread.